I'm Jim Check here watching Now Media with this beautiful background here. Look at the blue skies here in the Okanagan. Still a little bit of smoky haze, but it is Friday, September 19th, and I have with me Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. We got lots to talk about today. This is our last show of the week because we're on every day at 9 a.m. live streaming here from the beautiful Kelowna and Ottawa together. And it's a different kind of newscast. So if you like it, share it. You know, we'd love that. Comment for sure. Help us get it out to more people because the media in Canada is compromised by Bill C-18. And the only way you're going to get unbiased news is if you stop watching the other guys that get all their money from the government. But lots going on, though, including the U.S. ambassador accuses the Liberals of anti-American rhetoric. Our own mayor here in Kelowna interviewed yesterday said enough is enough. Now's the time for action. Dan Elba said, Freeland took us for fools. I don't know if she said that, but I believe that she did take us for fools. Accountability and transparency, a thing of the past for the Liberals. Will the accounts in Canada finally take a stand, though? And more photo ops from the Liberal government. And I would say this is a defining moment for media. If you watch what they're doing in the next little while, you really see what's going on. Anyway, a lot of stories and a lot to talk about as we kick it off here. And we're going to kick it off with, we don't usually start locally, but this is a national story. But it's a national story with some Kelowna roots here. The mayor I interviewed yesterday, Tom Dias here in Kelowna, he sent a letter to Sean Fraser, and it highlights the problem that's across Canada. This is across many cities in Canada. We had one offender here in Canada with over 220 files, active files, and that include assault, theft, disturbances, all that kind of stuff. 32 failures to comply and 32 failures to appear. It's just a revolving door. And there's just a few individuals that are responsible for the majority of the crimes in Kelowna, and that's the same in Penticton. And he referenced about 15 people racking up 1,350 repetitive offenses in a year, and they include assaults, thefts, threats, public disturbances. And, you know, like that keeps the police very, very busy and away from doing some of the other work that's so needed here. And it is a problem. It's that revolving door where they don't have enough prosecutors, they don't have enough that and this. And I also interviewed Eleanor Sturko, MLA, and she's the critic for the community safety file there. And it's a good interview. So if you get a chance, go watch both these interviews. Did you get a chance to watch them?
Dias, our Lord and Master, but I'm yet to see the full Sturko interview. But yeah, I mean, she's obviously, I think she's earned the respect even of her opponents, hasn't she? Eleanor Sturko. So I would certainly recommend that, and I will be forthwith watching that interview because it's always worth listening to what she has to say. But it was quite interesting with Dias because, I mean, everybody in politics wants to blame somebody else, don't they? You listen to a mayor, they blame the premier. You listen to the premier, David Eby, he blames Alberta, Quebec, Ottawa, Washington, D.C. You know, everyone blames someone else. But I think in this case with Tom Dias, it's hard to reject his main claim here, isn't it? Which is like, he sort of says, we can hire cops, we can do stuff like that. But what's the point if people get arrested, they get a court hearing, and then they're just let out and they just commit more crime? It almost becomes a kind of futile exercise. And, you know, David Eby has also made that argument, hasn't he, at a provincial level? So I do quite sympathise, and I think most people probably will. Like, this really is an issue for the federal government primarily, isn't it? Even though he also mentions the provincial government, doesn't he, Tom Dias? But this is primarily a criminal code thing.
And I mean, I mean, that letter was very powerful that was sent to Sean Fraser. Very powerful. I don't know how you ignore it. I mean, it's just, and it's the same in Vancouver. I've heard the same thing. There's just a few individuals for like a majority of crimes, like when we're talking about these crimes, and just it's a revolving door. And just the question I had for the mayor there is like 32 failures to appear. How does the judge keep letting them out? Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, this time, make sure you show up in court, right? Here's your, we're going to give you one more chance. How many chances are left?
I mean, it completely destroys the spirit behind that the idea of a second chance, doesn't it? If you just keep giving chance after chance after chance, it's just another example of how, morally speaking, it seems to me, although this is quite a grand topic, but morally and in terms of principles, Canada and the rest of the West are just all over the place. I think they've forgotten the very basics, like the idea that you don't just keep giving somebody a chance if
So
they keep doing the same thing again and again and again and again.
the big thing for Canadians to look at here is look at Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. Look at that. Noise violations, public nuisance, mischief, or whatever. Held in custody, right? And court case, like, imagine if they decided they didn't want to fail to appear. I mean, they went to arrest Tamara. I think they took like a SWAT team with them. And here's this guy, 32 failures to appear, 223 active files.
But it's also whenever somebody does something that
comply. What's that?
Whenever somebody does something, like you've pointed out, politically sensitive, immediately, somehow, the judges, the legal system, it all works. It goes beautifully, doesn't it? It runs so smoothly and efficiently, and those people are promptly sent away for 10, 15 years or whatever it is. Why is it the case that happens for these politically sensitive crimes and high-profile ones, but not this? Not just like the day-to-day trying to live your life as an ordinary citizen. And I think... I mean, I listened. I often giggle when I listen to CBC's, like the main CBC radio news bulletin. It's supposed to be like one of the most important news bulletins in the morning. I listened to that this morning. Obviously, top story was Jimmy Kimmel, because that's the biggest story in Canada right now. Yeah. But like many items later, they talked about Sean Fraser and his plans to reform the justice system and how it's going to focus on hatred and hate speech and anti-hate. And I'm just kind of thinking, you get people like Tom Dias going there begging, and he's just one of hundreds, thousands of people begging just for, like, please give me the king's peace, like give me law and order in my city, in where I live, in my neighborhood. And then the federal government are like, good point, yeah, we'll make it illegal for people to wave certain symbols outside of churches. What are you talking about? It's just, and this is kind of classic, isn't it? Really, it's like you come to the king, the Lord, with a complaint, and then he says, "Oh yeah, there's something I've been wanting to do for a lot of years. Actually, I'll do that. Thanks for that, mate."
Yeah, and I think to Canadians as well, if you're watching, really watch what the media does in this next little while here with the Jimmy Kimmel thing and all that, and look at what they're actually trying to accomplish and how that's any of our business. And how they're portraying the Americans as fascists and all that stuff. Well, we're in Canada, we don't even have a free and independent media. We have Bill C-18 crushing free and independent media, and the rest of them are corrupted at the trough. And well, I mean, after the CBC sticks its face into the trough and gorges itself on Canadian taxpayer dollars, the rest, the crumbs from the other outlets, the big legacy outfits, they're there. And then maybe if a couple of small crumbs fall off the table, they go to some left-leaning outlets, like what was that, the cult media, and some of the stuff they put out there, getting government funding, like the list is long for after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Some of the stuff they put out, just absolutely horrendous.
Canada is in no position whatsoever to talk about something that the FCC does. When you look at what happens in Canada, the rules here for broadcasting are a lot stronger than they are in the US, and you've got to have a certain amount of Canadian content, whatever the hell that means. There are so many restrictions here. We are really not in a position to say a word to the Americans about freedom of speech or freedom to broadcast.
In my discussion with Eleanor Sturko, she also brought up the decriminalization pilot that was run here in BC from David Eby, and also with the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, and what a disaster it has been on the streets of British Columbia. And she pointed out to some of the stuff that happened in Oregon as well, and that it needs to be stopped. But
they did stop it in Oregon, didn't they? That's the funny thing.
And I asked why they're doing it. Like, if they see the results of it, why haven't they stopped? And she said it's an ideological position that they have. And I also asked, because I interviewed Terry Young, the NDP Minister for Community Safety, and I asked if he shared the information with Eleanor Sturko like on an ongoing basis, because she's a former RCMP member, I think 14 years, and he's a former Vancouver Police Department, I think, for 20 years or so. And I asked if the information was being shared because it's a common problem and it should be a nonpartisan issue. And he said he was. He said, yes, I share everything, Jim. It's all good. And I asked Eleanor if she's getting the information, and she said no.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be surprising, would it? I suppose we don't know who's telling the truth there, but it certainly would not be surprising if the BC NDP was not forthcoming with information.
Well, they sure don't share the health stats. We know that for a fact because we can't even get them. And then this just in the same vein here, the BC small business confidence, the lowest in Canada for the second straight month. So that's a thing that Gavin Dew put out there. The province's long-term optimism index dropped to 45.3, well below break-even mark, and that's really affecting businesses. And we started this whole series with the BIA BC putting out that thing that 67% of businesses feeling a lot of anxiety in the business climate, and 1 in 5 believing that they won't make it another year, and in British Columbia here. And then here, just another to add salt into the wound. Here's the Salt and Brick here, announcing the closure on Bernard Avenue here after 7 years of operations, closing its doors. And the owner goes on to say that a number of factors taking a toll in hospitality. Despite reports of improved tourism this summer, we didn't see that reflected on Bernard, while other restaurants that they own a couple, saw slight improvements. Salt and Brick has not recovered from the challenges of the past few years. The impact of changing short-term rental policies, the fires in 2023, shifting consumer habits, what we call hospitality recession. And guests are dining out a lot less too, and not choosing to drink alcohol. Well, and then the other reasons is people aren't going downtown for fear of crime and safety. The economy in general stops people from spending. It's expensive to go out and eat. All these things are piling up. And then the NDP still denies that the Airbnb policy has affected tourism in Kelowna, even though many of the industries and many of the other elected officials say that it's actually crushed tourism here in the Okanagan Valley. So deny it all you want.
The first thing that you mentioned there, the survey, the business optimism.
The ABC survey, yeah. Oh, that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting there that their main concern for 72% is tax and regulation. Yeah. I mean, that is entirely within the control of, or almost entirely within the control of the provincial government. Followed by wages. I mean, that's quite a complicated one, isn't it? That's partly the province's responsibility. And then insurance, which seems to me, insurance is kind of like a euphemism for crime at this point, isn't it? Because the insurance for a lot of these businesses is really high because of crime, particularly.
Well, go watch that interview with Tom Dias, and he talks about it. He said like some of these businesses can't even get insurance. And a part of the condition of their lease now, after repeated crime, part of their condition of their lease is to have insurance. So they basically lose their business.
Yeah, but obviously the question of tax and the question of regulation, that how long have people been complaining about that now? Under specifically the NDP government and the previous one of John Hogan's, but nothing seems to change. If anything, taxes are added, and again, it just seems like at some point you have to kind of like. You have to say, all right, maybe we're stifling business here. Maybe we have to kind of relax a bit on the taxes.
All the screeching media here in Canada screeching about Jimmy Kimmel. Where did they defend Tamara Lich and Chris Barber for freedom of speech? Because what were they doing? It was a political discussion. Weren't they they were making a political point, were they not? What were they doing?
Yeah, well, and also other things that occurred during COVID, not just that, but
what were they
people
doing?
That were talking about all kinds of things related to freedom of speech.
They have zero room to speak. They have zero room of what they did. And it seems like they have the court system and the resources to go and arrest people and hold them in custody for parking violations and noise violations. Yet somebody that commits 222 assaults, thefts, crimes against the people losing their business, people feeling unsafe, No policing, no courts for that. I mean, there's policing. I shouldn't say that because we're arresting them. But the court system's not working, and we have this catch and release bail system. Where's the catch and release for Chris Barber and Tamara Litch?
I think, if anything, you've understated it there, because when that was going on, not only did they arrested them, they put them through the courts and the rest of it, they literally suspended ordinary democracy in this country. They invoked the War Measures Act, the Emergencies Act. You have to just kind of let that stink up the room. They suspended ordinary governance to try and crush that. That's how seriously they took it. But that also tells you that when the will is there, there's nothing that they can't do. So if the will was there to try and, like we've seen in Washington, D.C., for example, with Trump, the will is there to try and, as he says, clean up Washington, D.C. You can just do anything. It's like one of those memes on the internet. You can just do things. Yeah, you can. And that includes the Liberal government in Ottawa. They can just do things. And that's exactly what they did during the truckers' protest, where they invoked a piece of legislation that exists really for when Canada's at war. That's what you can do. So I feel like the contrast is even starker than the way you're portraying it there.
Let's put this graph up here because I think we need to put it up every day so Canadians start to give their head a shake and stop listening to the Liberal lies and also the Liberal-funded media, liberal corrupted media that tells you nothing but to look over there and ignore the facts that are right there in front of your eyes. There's the fact right there in front of your eyes. Just put that chart on the table when somebody starts to argue with you. Just put it there and say, explain it to me. Help me understand.
François-Philippe Champagne, in an exclusive interview to the Canadian press, that great outlet for holding power to account, he just said, we've been at the center of industrialization or the industrial economy in North America for many years, and now we can do that in Europe. That's his great pitch in today's Canadian press. And I'm just thinking, just look at this. How does that align with this graph?
They just lie.
You're talking about Canada is at the center of the industrial complex in North America. It's like,
now gaslighting. And here our next story here, and this is from Holly Doan at Blacklocks here. And she took people for fools. And this is Christia. Remember that this is the BC Ferries thing, which I said is going to be the BC NDP's biggest scandal, and it is turning into an absolute scandal, but it's dragging the Liberals into it. Like it's looking like they knew a lot more, a lot earlier than they put on, right? And I think we got a clip here from Dan Elbis here. We're going to play this clip, I believe. Let's play this clip here from Dan Elbis.
Transport Canada was made aware of 6 weeks before that announcement, and they did nothing to protect Canadian jobs. They just sat on their hands and let it proceed. They didn't act to secure those contracts. They didn't push back at it. This raises a number of questions about former Minister Chrystia Freeland's abrupt resignation and blows a hole in her narrative that she wanted BC Ferries to buy Canadian and was dismayed and upset about it. She said these things on the floor of the House of Commons when myself and other members raised concerns about this procurement. So, Mr. Chair, we need to get to the bottom of this. Mr. Chair, this just reiterates the need to cancel this loan. $1 billion of taxpayer money that is going to a PRC shipyard. I am sick to my stomach that this is what the government has done.
And here's the timeline. April 29th, Freeland's deputy minister was told of the contract by BC Ferries. June 10th, the contract was publicly announced by BC Ferries. June 12th, Freeland told MPs, "I'm disappointed and concerned when I learned of this procurement, particularly at this moment when Canadian workers need support." June 16th, Freeland wrote a letter to the BC government. It is with great consternation and disappointment that I learned of this BC Ferries recent announcements. June 26th, The Canadian Infrastructure Bank confirmed it financed the shipyard contract because nobody even knew about that yet, right? Because that came out after. And then August 1st, asked when she learned of the financing, Freeland replied, "I'm disappointed in the decision."
Wait, that's not an answer, Christia. What are you doing? I thought you were honest old Christia. But this is, it's starting to look now, isn't it, like an almighty coincidence that she's abruptly resigned, as Dan Arbus pointed out. It's starting to look like maybe this is going to start to stink even more. And she knows that, and so off she goes.
But it's time for the David Eby to answer to this as well. And you know, when they're all standing up there touting, this is the thing. This is the same hypocrisy that goes on. Jolie and Francois and Freeland, they all stand up there. How we got to support Canadian aluminum and steel, Canadian jobs, all this stuff. This is Canadian taxpayer dollars that was going directly to China. And then Eby says that we couldn't find anybody to build it here. And it turns out that one of the items on the contract there was price. And then you talk to the Canadian shipyards and they say, well, they can't compete on price with China. That gets to use inferior steel and aluminum, basically slave labor, and no industrial carbon tax. And then Canadian companies are supposed to compete with that.
And that's a concept that the Liberal government understands very well, because that's why that's how they've justified a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, literally in that exact language that you've just used. So they're very familiar with this concept. It's just, as usual, it's selectively applied. And you said David Eby needs to respond to this. He did, and I think it was yesterday. Well, kind of responded to it, where he said, like the question was asked kind of very much about BC Ferries and this loan and the scandal, and his response was, "Oh, in the Maritimes they got loads of money off the federal government. That's what I'm worried about. British Columbians are being exploited and abused, and it's not fair."
It's again, look over there. Look over there.
Exactly.
Look over there.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's also this man who has told us about how important it is for Canada to stand strong and have elbows up as well. And I'm talking about David Eby here, who echoed a lot of the Liberal Party's language during the sort of peak of the anti-Trumpism and anti-Americanism a few months ago. He now, at the drop of a hat, he's trying to pit BC against Newfoundland and the Maritimes in general, just like that. And then he's also dropping very sarcastic comments about Danielle Smith and how, you know, there's no proponent for a pipeline and all the rest. It's kind of that there is a limit to the humbug that you can swallow, I think, as a sort of average citizen. There's a limit to the amount of hypocrisy that you can be slapped in the face with on a day-to-day basis.
So they need to feed some meat to the rabid left watching the shows there. And what are they feeding them? Instead of like going after this is the abuse of the taxpayer. What are they feeding them? Jimmy Kimmel stuff on Canadian news, right? That's the big thing, how Donald Trump is a fascist.
2 days in a row, by the way, I didn't even say, 2 days in a row that the CBC's leading premier news bulletin in the morning, which everyone hears that's listening to the radio as they commute to work. Two days in a row, Jimmy Kimmel was the lead story.
Look at all the meat on this bone. This is absolute corruption and fraud and abuse of the Canadian taxpayer. But Jimmy Kimmel leads in Canada in the government-funded media.
He was a minor chat show host in a foreign country, a pretty insignificant celebrity interviewer in a foreign country.
And in their discussions, do they talk about him, what he did? No, they don't talk about what he did. They don't talk about how he knowingly misled. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about how ABC told him to apologize and he can go back on the air. And he wasn't going to apologize. He was actually going to put out another diatribe of just like hate. And they said, you're not going back out there.
Well, they also, on that radio broadcast, I'm sure they've done it on their website as well and TV, they misrepresented what he said. And they didn't. The thing that people are upset about is that he implied that this murderer was MAGA, was a Republican, and that the Republican Party is trying to claim that he wasn't a MAGA, which is a now very rapidly debunked conspiracy theory that was circulating on Twitter and other websites. That's why people were so upset. It was this idea that it was like a Trump supporter that had killed Charlie Kirk. There's no evidence that that's true.
Yeah. But anyway, what's Canada doing? What's the Canadian media? Your taxpayer dollars that the CBC just slops at the trough for that, And then the rest of the media, let's look at them. Look at the ones that are portraying that as the number one story. What's this? Is this not one of the biggest stories in Canada right now? The finance minister and former finance minister, like the second most powerful person in the Liberal Party for the past 10 years, is out and out lying, And where's the attention? Where's the attention? And let's just carry on with some of this stuff. Look, Holly Dones must be one of the most loved people in Parliament there, because here she is. Beware of creative accounting. Cabinet can't rely on creative accounting to meet its NATO spending. You talked about this a while ago, because they're saying now they're going to lump in the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard's never been in there for the last 100 years, never been counted towards being part of our national defense. But now all of a sudden they're going to chuck them in there. And you know what the Coast Guard can't do? They can't even give out fishing fines for violations. They have to get somebody from fisheries to actually write the fine. That's how much power the Canadian Coast Guard has. They can't even fine anyone for fishing violations. And you know, in their fleet, this is what oh my. In their fleet, the Coast Guard claims a fleet of 127 vessels. That includes 58 lifeboats. 16 training.
What are we talking about here when we say lifeboats? Like, that could mean anything, couldn't it? That could be a little dinghy.
Like the ones that are on the side of their bigger boat. 58 lifeboats, 16 training, survey, and science vessels. And ready for this? 12 shore patrol boats. That's the Canadian Coast Guard. And
so they're just like pretty little boats, aren't they? With the little motorboats.
And they can't even hand out fishing license, yet they're going to count them towards the NATO targets. Like if you were in NATO there, and they slid that across the desk to you and said, okay, so Canada's going to spend this much money. Let's have a look at what's in there. 4 diesel-powered...
I think this is going to be the least of it, because of that. The 5% one includes, you can spend it on almost anything you want, like bridges and things like that. And that's obviously what it's going to be. It's going to be very creative accounting, as they say.
4 diesel-powered sub, I believe only one's operational, might be 2. That they bought in the United Kingdom. I said this over and over. Canadian shit. That they bought in a United Kingdom garage sale, and then they lit on fire as we were sailing them home, and we tried to get our money back, and the Brits said, "Good one, those are yours."
Maybe they'll sell us some Spitfires if we ask them.
We do have a fleet of, I think it's CF-18s, is it, that are 40 years old. Only half are operational.
I mean, I shouldn't laugh, because it's not funny, really, is it? It isn't actually funny.
No, the creative accounting is. The creative accounting is. Like, it's just lie after lie after lie. Let's cut to the chase. It's lies. It's misleading the taxpayer, isn't it? Like, what else is it, if not that?
It's certainly deceptive, I would say. You have to call it. You see, one thing you couldn't say is that it's honest. This is not honesty from honest Ottawa.
It's surely not accountability and transparency, is it?
No, we don't really get a lot of that, though, do we?
Let's play this clip here from our favorite, Melanie Jolie and Pierre Poilievre going at it.
The Prime Minister is in Mexico today for a photo op and fake agreement, but it's a great opportunity to compare because both countries are neighbors of the United States. In the last quarter, Canada's economy shrunk by 1.6%, while the Mexican economy grew by 2.4%. Wow. The Canadian exports to the United States crashed by 18%, while Mexican exports to the U.S. are up 1.4%. Wow. And the Canadian unemployment rate is 3 times higher than Mexicans. Wow. Will the Prime Minister ask his Mexican friends what they're doing right that he's doing so wrong?
Right here. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister believes in having a strong relationship with Mexico, our second biggest trading partner. That's exactly why he is in Mexico today, meeting with the President to make sure that we can have our trading relationship really on par. Now, the other thing that the leader of the opposition needs to understand is that we're living in a much more dangerous and complicated world with trade tensions having impacts on trading partners all around the world. We will stand up for workers, we'll stand up for our businesses, and we'll build Canada strong.
This is the time in the life cycle of any Liberal government when they go from making promises to making excuses. So they're blaming their collapsing economy on global tensions. But interestingly, Mexico shares the same neighbor as we do. We're both right next door to the Americas, so we can compare performance. But in the most recent quarter, the Mexican economy has actually grown by 2.4%. The Canadian economy down by 1.6%. Our unemployment is three times what theirs is. Why?
Mr. Speaker, what is shocking from the leader of the opposition comments is always talking down Canadian workers, Canadian businesses, the Canadian economy. You know what? Good news is the Bank of Canada yesterday reduced rates. We should all be celebrating that. This is good news, Mr. Speaker. And we will be there for businesses in the tariff sectors, including aluminum, steel, auto, copper, and all the other sectors, because we know that these workers are important, these businesses are important, and we have a plan to build Canada strong.
I can't handle any more of her.
Who can? That was my question when I was like, because there's a survey out either today or yesterday about Polyev and how between 50 and 60% of Canadians apparently actively dislike Pierre Polyev, according to this survey. And I was just wondering, would they ever do that for Melanie Joly? I'd be fascinated to know who looks at Melanie Joly's performances and says like, yeah, there's a leader. Like, she's got our backs. She knows what she's doing. Because every time I see her, it seems that she's fluffing her lines, so to speak.
And again, we were there for Canadians for steel and aluminum. Again, Melanie Joly, BC Ferries, where were you? You're there for businesses. We told you about the letter from the mayor in Kelowna, but that's going across Canada. Where are you there with bail reform? But you're not doing bail reform. You're doing hate speech because you guys want to control the internet. It's just gaslighting. And then we lowered interest rates. I thought they were independent. The Bank of Canada is independent, and the interest rates are lowered because the economy is in a tailspin.
Not only that, but if you remember, not so long ago,
what you said. We lowered.
But
right?
if you remember, not so long ago, Pierre Polyev said he wanted to fire Tiff Macklem, didn't he? Do you remember that was one of his policies?
He's an independent.
And he got exactly. He was treated to a lot of abuse from the Liberal Party, CBC, and all the rest of it. And he stopped talking about that now. And yet she can sort of raise doubts about the independence of the Bank of Canada, but not Pierre Polyev. He's not allowed to do that.
We lowered the interest rates because we did that for Canada because we're building Canada strong. Well, you better have a look around, Melanie, at the fires that are burning all over around your feet. And the problem in Canada, I'm going to say this over and over, it's the Canadian media. It's the Canadian media that are at the behest of the Liberal Party of Canada. Because the one party wanted to defund them, the other one just filled their trough so they could stick their face in and gorge more. And then the rest of them, with Bill C-18, is crushing us and crushing everybody. And but then some of them get a lot more crumbs than others, and they selectively decide who gets to eat at the bowl. And then of course, they toe the line for the Liberal Party. So, I mean, the best thing you can do is help us spread our word and turn off that left-leaning media. There needs to be accountability, because these are stories that the media should be going after. And I can tell you right now, we highlight a lot of Holly Doan Blacklock stories that get very little airplay, basically zero, right? Because this BC Ferry story should be an absolute scandal. Compare this to the orange juice. Compare this to the orange juice of Stephen Harper days. That was a glass of orange juice for, I think it was $14. That just never went away. There's $1 billion contract that went to fund a Chinese shipyard that's tied to the CCP.
Indeed. And I mean, there are plenty of scandals that have just been knocked out of the news just because they've been replaced with new ones as well. I mean, even in the Carney government, for example, his personal finances, that is obviously a scandal. And yet that's gone now, hasn't it, as an issue? It's just replaced by new scandals.
So they were off to they're off to Mexico. And here's LeBlanc and Carney enjoying a moment here. They're loving the photo ops, right? You gotta love the photo ops.
I love how they've blurred out what they're holding in their hands. It almost looks like they've got something they shouldn't have. What are you holding there, Dom? Dom and Mark?
Anyway, Carney and Sheinbaum signed a deal to deepen economic ties. Okay. And then what is the deal? If you dig into it a little bit, and this is where Carney takes some of the heat, because this is how courageous he is. The unfortunate fact is, yes, there are cartel or gangs from one country and another country, but also vice versa. So we have Canadian gangs in Mexico now, Canadian cartels. Is that what's going on, right?
I mean, I think that they'll surely have contacts because they source a lot of drugs from there, don't they? But the idea that there are like Canadian gangs that have claimed territory or something like that in Juarez, I don't think so.
So anyway, Carney's Liberals are trying to put this out as a big deal that they signed, but then Sheinbaum threw a little bit of cold water on it, and she said it. Today, we're beginning a new era of elevated cooperation, comprehensive strategic. That was Carney saying that, comprehensive partnership. Sheinbaum, though, on the other hand, says that we need to really, this deal could complement the Canada-United States-Mexico CUSMA agreement. And that's where she wants to put all her, you know what I mean? Like, she's convinced that the trade agreement for all three is where we need to spend our energy. Imagine that, hey?
Well, look, the reality is, for so many reasons that should be obvious to almost everybody, America is the key player in the Mexico-Canada relationship. So everything, even when they do a bilateral, everything is about America. And this is no different. It's really just about America, this, isn't it? As everything is. Everything that happens in North America is in some way or other about America. And that's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Though she has kind of said that, hasn't she? She's let the rabbit out of the hat there.
Yeah, she won't. I mean, Carney's trying to make it seem like, because he wants a win for the public, right? He wants something to take back to his so he can give that to the CBC to run with it. But she said, she's convinced the trade agreement for all three countries is the best thing for all three countries, because she knows who's watching. And the agreement
but
also
she also
includes,
knows who pays the bills. Right. It's not trade with Canada that pays the bills. But I mean, for all that, having said all that, it is definitely a good idea for Canada and Mexico to do more business with each other, because it's always been a bit of an anomaly within NAFTA, hasn't it? That it's not reached its maximum potential, let's say.
And then here's this is the thing, the plum they pulled out of this. The agreement also includes $9.9 million in funding for United Nations-led projects to combat drugs and support migrant integration. What is that supposed to mean?
What's
that's
funny
the
is
big deal.
In the official statement that they sent out to the press, that was in bold, $9.9 million. That's what I mean. It was like, that was trying to catch your attention.
That's what I mean. So if that's like the strong past Canada, it's like 9.9 million. And here's Trump talking trillions of dollars. In the UK, what was they talking yesterday? Like a $500 billion in that. And here it is. They just come out and they're just like, 9.9 million in UN-led projects, which is just basically give it to an NGO and throw it into the wind.
It's just totally wasted, wasted money. But it does. I suppose the only sense in which it isn't wasted is that it gains you credibility with the UN for whatever value that provides. I don't know.
Pierre Poilievre's reaction to it is just another photo op. And he said, we've had free trade with for 3 decades. So what did we get? But here's the most important one, I think, of the day is Jolie. Like, how is Jolie in the job she's in? Industry Minister Melanie Jolie yesterday said she needs private consultants to help in managing the fundamental rethink of relations with the United Nations. I thought, remember when she was first running there, where Carney was running, that people were coming to Canada to get advice on how to deal with the Americans, because Canada knew best how to deal with the Americans. Remember that? Do you remember that speech she made? People are coming to her because she was the person. But I guess, she has a department of more than 6,000 employees and access to fully staffed Canadian trade offices in 15 American cities. Yet, she still needs to hire outside consultants to know how to talk American. They're just basically.
I mean, I believe that she does need guidance and help. But then the question that follows is quite obvious. Why is she in that job?
They basically have their hands or their elbows deep into the bag of the Canadian taxpayer money and just just like distributing it like it was candy to whoever wants it and then buying favor with it.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this money goes into the United States and into the pockets of people who are connected to the Democratic Party.
Well,
And
that's what
it's
they
a kind
hired.
of-
That was the one person they hired. Remember, we did that story a while ago.
Yeah.
The people they got to talk to Republicans, they hired a Democrat so they could learn how to talk to the Republicans.
It's a way to kind of ingratiate themselves with the Democrats, who they will be praying to every god ever conceived by man are going to win the next presidential election and the midterms. So it's kind of, I think it might look like one thing, but really it's another. I think it's about trying to butter up the Democrats so that, in the hopes that the Democrats will get rid of all of these, all the problems between Canada and the US and trade.
I mean, on November 8th, she said, she told reporters that Canada has a unique and profound understanding of the USA. It's a strength of experience. I've been in contact with many key influencers within the Trump administration. We are very unique in the world. We have the strongest and I think most important relationship as a country with the United States. And they have a relationship that goes deep at different levels. Yet, she still needed to give out money to figure out how to speak to the Americans. She should figure out how to speak to Canadians. That's where the money would be better spent.
Meanwhile, we had Donald Trump yesterday. I think was it yesterday? Yeah, it was in England, just saying the most unbelievably complimentary things about Britain. That that they're two peas in a pod, and that they are, like he said, the relationship goes beyond special, and it's kind of impossible to describe how important it is, given what are claimed to be quite favorable deals and investment and all the rest of it. So I do wonder, what have the British just completely outsmarted us? Because obviously they shouldn't be able to do that. Because she is right in saying that probably it is the most important relationship America has. But why are they off there in Britain, pouring compliments on the British and trying to, what was it, like 150 billion pounds of investment or something like that? It's kind of, raises the question, are they adopting the right approach? Maybe they should get Keir Starmer on a contract.
Yeah, I mean, they're both gushing at each other. Keir Starmer, King Charles III, and Trump. They were all definitely talking about the history that goes back to George Washington, and even kind of glossing over that history a little bit and talking about how, it's matured into, that the two fought shoulder to shoulder. And I think Canada was there fighting as well on the beaches of Normandy and different things. But in this, the U.S. ambassador explains it a little bit here, that the Liberals used it to win an election and just haven't stopped. You don't have it? What's that? Is it? Can you look for it there? Because it is a pretty good clip there somewhere. You see if you can find it. But basically, he goes on.
Who's been hitting him on the head?
I don't know. But he does go on to say that if you look at the next one, he said one of his biggest statements is, we are not at war, and that's the U.S. ambassador disappointed with this rhetoric, and he said this rhetoric hasn't stopped.
I mean, look, it's you have to say, don't you? It's a little bit cheeky of him to come out and say that. And he, in many ways, ever since he's opened his mouth, this ambassador, it's almost been an attempt to try and smooth things over while not upsetting Donald Trump.
No,
at the same time, he's got quite a sort of hard path to walk, hasn't he? This guy, but obviously, Canada didn't start this latest round of trash talking. That really was Donald Trump's.
I could argue Trudeau started it back. You know what I mean? I could make that argument that Trudeau started it with anti-Trump rhetoric, and when he won the election too, when he went on to say he called basically America a bunch of misogynists for voting for Trump. I mean, he just stuck the stick in there, knowing full well that we were going to do trade and that they had to deal with the Trump administration after he won the election. Like, there was no need for Trudeau to stand there and basically stick a stick in the eye of the United States after. Well, basically, not even just to the Trump administration, basically to the Americans, right? Saying that they were a bunch of misogynists.
I don't disagree that it goes back many years as well with Justin Trudeau, because he was very much one of the one of those kind of snickering
And Freeland.
liberal
And Freeland
politicians,
as well.
wasn't he?
Both of them very
And
disrespectful.
Freeland, and they, these people were found across Europe, weren't they? And there's lots of famous videos, and that obviously that picture where they're all like looking down on him.
Yeah.
Like everybody basically jumped in on this, didn't they? But still, I think Canadians would have understood it if Donald Trump had come out and just attacked the Liberal Party by name, and Justin Trudeau by name, and Chrystia Freeland and all the rest of it, and kept it at that. But he didn't. He made it about Canada, and that changed it, and that has changed the dynamic. But I don't know if Pete Hoekstra, or Hoekstra, however you pronounce his name, if he's this guy, I mean the ambassador.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's Hoekstra. It's like a Dutch name. But if he's actually operating on the instructions of Donald Trump, then that could be, like, fingers crossed. That could be a very good sign, because this is an attempt at conciliation, isn't it? Even though it's trying to kind of blame Canada at the same time. But there is an attempt, and his previous comments as well about this bigger deal that America wanted. There could be some kind of positivity there.
Well, here's the procurement ombudsman that said he can't keep his mouth shut anymore. He's watching the abuse and the waste, and he just is done just watching. Let's play this clip here.
Procurement is frustrated at what he describes as a broken system that's failing government and taxpayers. David Akin explains why fixing it could be a tall order for Prime Minister Mark Carney's government.
I think my frustration has bubbled to the point where I know that something needs to be done.
Alexander Yeglich has been procurement ombudsman since 2018, and he is frustrated that no one is fixing a badly broken buying process.
If I wanted to do my job effectively and leave procurement in a better place, I had to stand up and speak the truth. And the truth is the system needs to be overhauled.
So he's going public with his plan to change the way Ottawa spends $37 billion a year buying everything from paper clips to submarines. Simplify complex government procurement rules that prevent potential suppliers from bidding on government contracts.
What we're seeing as an office is a stunning lack of competition in competitive processes.
Create a vendor performance management system. He says without it, there's no way to share information about shady suppliers who do lousy work.
Ding, 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 ding. Arrive can.
It's good timing, wasn't it? That.
Yeah, I mean, the accountants need to find their voice. It's just ridiculous. Quebec, talking about the notwithstanding clause here. Let's listen in on Yves Blanchette.
What you expect that Mr. Carney will be coming back with from Mexico, and how that could or may not help the North American Free Trade Agreement renegotiations, or CUSMA, I should say, when you consider that at the beginning of this process, it seemed like we were not going to be trying to really side with Mexico. Do you think that this will help? And could Canada and Mexico maybe team up and try and get a better deal out of the U.S.?
At the very beginning of the whole process, when Mr. Trudeau said that we could drop Mexico in the deal, it was very bad for our businesses, but it was very bad as a message. He should, and Mr. Carney should instead try to add allies to an amount so important that the market it represents is more important than the American market, and that the GDP it produces is more important than the American GDP. And all those persons and countries together facing the United States would have got a much better leverage. This is not what happened. And I suppose that Mrs. Scheinbaum did not like it so much. So there might have been a cold moment. If the relationship is improved, that's good. If there are significant intentions, might be good, but I will wait for it to be to come with means and projects, clear projects and means in order to achieve it. We must keep in mind, however, that our relationship with Mexico is the 5th in importance in matters of trade. 80% of what Canada exports is to United States. It will let you calculate approximatively the importance of the Mexican market for Canada. So let's improve that. But in no way could we compare the Mexican market for Canada and the American market for Canada.
I mean, it's an obvious point, but it's a good point. It's not, Mexico doesn't really have a consumer economy. You know, it's, you're not going to get rich selling stuff to Mexico, really.
Well, I talked to a guy there, the Uber driver, who was making $12 a day in Mexico City working for Coca-Cola. Probably can't buy a lot of stuff. Hey?
No, totally. I mean, and that's why Mexico's looked at as being valuable because it has quite a large labor force because they have better demographics and they've had a higher birth rate for longer than places like Canada. So it's looked at as a cheaper jurisdiction to manufacture.
But if you look at what he said, I think one of the key points in there is, again, the Trudeau Liberals, virtue signaling was more to them than anything. Like, they went after Trump because they thought, the Democrats would have their back all the time. And then they went after the Mexico, too, and said, let's toss Mexico out of the agreement. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you think? And then they went on to say, too, that Mexico doesn't even have a culture. Remember those things that they said? Lots of people don't forget that stuff. Like, well, what are the Liberals doing? Like, it's just self-inflicted damage. It seems like how can we wreck our nation? It's just like, let's look through the list. Who can we insult today? Who can we ostracize? Who can we put in jail? Who can we let out? It's like, it's wild. Let's play this clip here from Blanchette here. I think, is this the same link? Oh, okay, yeah, so we're not going to play that. But there was a clip there. I don't know if I got it in there, but that's a notwithstanding clause. And Daniel Smith has put something out too and says, because Blanchette was been talking about too, and he's also supportive of Alberta finding its freedom, because I'm pretty sure he wants to find his freedom. But the notwithstanding clause is integral to the Canadian Charter rights and freedoms. And she goes on to say, we're extremely disappointed that the federal government would risk a national unity and foundational principle of our Constitution by attempting to attack the use of the notwithstanding clause by a sovereign provincial government. So
this is an interesting one. Ontario, Alberta, and Quebec are all upset about it. I don't know about Saskatchewan. I think they are, but I don't know if because they've all actually, they're interveners in this case, aren't they? The provinces, but I'm not sure Saskatchewan is, but I'm sure they would agree with the principle. I'm sure most provinces would. They want this notwithstanding clause, which has definitely become a tool. It's become a tool now that premiers want to use all the time, really, hasn't it? And I don't think that was how it was envisioned, but they're not going to relinquish that power to sort of tell the federal government to go away. I mean, obviously they're not, are they? So it's kind of like it's a battle of the center versus the periphery, isn't it? It's quite an interesting one.
Toronto taxpayers to pay for gender-affirming care for city staff, including surgeries. Well, I mean, they got lots of money, right? The city of Toronto.
That's one of the requests or demands of the Canada Post workers as well. So it's clearly a popular request, that one.
And then there's a video out there on the internet right now. You can go watch it on X. Somebody walking through the city of Toronto. The offices, there's nobody in there. Might just get rid of that fancy office.
Yeah. Maybe they're all getting gender-affirming care. They're all in convalescence.
And there's Amy Aline Ham, the nurse here that got herself in trouble there. Like, she's retweeted this thing from Andy Lee, that we spent $8.2 million to create gender-just rice.
That's a new suffix for me. That's a new little word to add on to another word. Just. Are we going to get climate just rice?
Gender just low carbon rice for value chain. What does Vietnam say, or like these countries say when they're saying, like, we're going to give you $8.2 million if you make sure you create some gender just carbon rice? They're just like, okay, sure.
They probably treat these contracts or these donations or whatever you want to call it as kind of like primetime comedy. This is like their Monty Python. Like, this is where they get their jokes and laughs.
Sure. When does the check arrive?
Yeah. Go on then, you morons. do whatever you want to do.
Or does the check actually arrive? But and here's Elizabeth May. I don't even know why we're even playing it, just other than for comedy. She says Canada abandoned the Paris Accord. This means death and suffering for Canadians. I'm not even going to play it. Right? She wants oil and gas knocked. I did an interview with yesterday. You set it up for me. Thank you for that. With the Seniors for Climate. And also Draw the Line. I did the interview. You can watch it on our Now Media account there. You can watch it. And she was looking for a bunch of justice, climate justice, Indigenous justice, migrant justice. I think there was 4 or 5 different justices she was looking for. And the end of fossil fuels.
Yeah, lots of renewables.
Something like that. And then anyway, I asked some questions about how people are supposed to survive, and where we're supposed to get the money and all that stuff, and she said that we could power the country with Site C Dam, and I pointed out that doesn't even provide enough power to power British Columbia.
And the issue with dams is it depends on which environmental activist you talk to, because some of them are really, really angry about dams. And you talk about Indigenous justice or whatever she said. A lot of First Nations are upset about dams. Dams aren't like uncontroversial. Hydro is not uncontroversial, is it? It's like the things that our ancestors did in the 1950s and earlier, like of actually building these dams. People love the idea that happened and the benefits that come from that, but they're not so happy about doing it in the here and now. And obviously, to get more hydro, you'd have to build a hell of a lot more dams, and that would upset lots and lots of people.
Well, I did share lots of stats with her, and then she finally got to the point where she said she didn't believe the stats, and I said, "Well, they're from the government, so I don't know what to say." We've done this story too many times, and we were talking about this the other day. And there's another former teacher being investigated, but not charged for child porn, but gets a lifetime ban. They raided his home and they seized several electronic devices, one which contained over 500 pictures of children aged 3 to 13. Some of the image considered by the RCMP consistent with the definition of the Child Pornography Act of Section 163.1. According to the...
3 years old. I mean...
He said...
What?
The Crown did not approve charges against Gray. But he was placed on leave, but later fired May 4th in 21. And then he agreed to have his... they said he had to send in fingerprints. He refused to do that, though. See, that's what I mean. Like, where's Tamara Litch and Chris Barber? They should be learning from this stuff. They said that he had to turn in his fingerprints twice. They had written to Gray. They had written him sternly, I imagine, right? They had written him sternly to provide fingerprints for the criminal records check, but he had not provided fingerprints. 2 months later, his teaching certificate was canceled due to non-payment. Not because of due to non-payment, right?
But he could theoretically teach in another province in Canada, couldn't he? I mean, he could theoretically also try and get back into BC.
I mean, how many stories have we done on teachers in British Columbia, just in British Columbia, and this kind of stuff? How many?
Yeah, it's rather frequent, isn't it? And if you think we're just looking at one province, population of 5 million or so.
It's just British Columbia we're looking at.
Yeah, it is a bit crackers, isn't it? I mean, these people, teachers, we forget they're given probably the most serious responsibility of anybody in society. That we give them our children. Like, there's nothing more valuable in the world.
You turn over your youth to them for the day, and then they want to, like in Daniel Smith's case, she wants to take out those books that have all these pictures in them, and they freak out. And the left-leaning media joins the fray. Like, it seems like, why would anybody defend that? It's the same thing as, why is anybody defending Jimmy Kimmel's, what he said there? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the same people coming out talking about how they need to defend freedom of speech are also the same people that celebrated Trump being banned on Twitter and all the rest of it. So much of this is just hypocritical trash, isn't it, that you don't even have to pay attention to. It's just transparently bogus.
Well, my fellow countrymen there, I mean, I have Hungarian roots. My mom and dad left Hungary in the revolution and were labeled as terrorists, I guess. But Hungary following Trump and designating Antifa a terrorist organization. That's from Orban. And here's Jesse Waters talking about why, like, they deserve this label.
Going to be to find out the source of this?
Well, you're going to have to infiltrate Antifa, so you're going to have some sort of transgender FBI agent go undercover for a while. I don't know if they have that at the Bureau.
It's a great movie.
But they could try it. They've been causing violence and mayhem for a long time, and everyone's treated them like a little nuisance, but they have to be treated seriously. They shot and killed someone out west. They shot a cop. They've punched people in the throats. They've fired commercial-grade fireworks in the faces of federal law enforcement. They laid siege to a federal courthouse. They occupy courthouses. They bomb cop cars. They bomb Teslas. They're not very nice people. It's not like they're doing this for health care reform. They want to overthrow the federal government. That's an anarchist. And anarchists in our history, they've assassinated presidents. They firebombed the townhouses of attorney generals. You got to take these guys seriously. Joe Biden took the threat of white supremacists, domestic terrorists seriously and investigated them. Surely we can investigate the domestic terror threat from Antifa because the money is suspicious. Where do they get the body armor? Why do they always have the best equipment and technology? Why do they look all tacked out constantly? And then when they get arrested, they have bail money and the best lawyers, so they never, ever face any charges. Who's paying the lawyers? That's what I want to know.
You bring up some interesting points. I mean, also, Emily, I mean, a lot of people think, I
don't know.
I would say you wouldn't have to put in a transgender FBI agent because if you spend any time with the actual real life Antifa types, they're almost all somewhat privileged, like financially privileged. Their background, they come from money a lot of the times, and they tend to be white. I mean, one of the ones that I knew better than any of the other Antifa people that I've known was I think he was descended from some kind of minor aristocracy. That's the kind of people that are in Antifa. So you don't, and obviously they do have like trans members and stuff, but you don't have to. You don't have to do that. It's like classic. It's like the Democratic Party leadership, or the Liberal Party leadership, where they never stop talking about black people or indigenous people or whatever it is, and then their leadership is just all people like Mark Carney.
Yeah. Well, here's the puzzling part for the Democrats is. The January 6th people, they want to put them in prison for life for trying to overthrow the government. These people actually say they want to overthrow the government, yet they're fine.
Yeah, well, and he mentioned he alluded to the assassination of William McKinley. That he was murdered by, in the 1920s, I think it was. He was murdered by an anarchist. He wasn't Antifa, but there is a long history of left-wing extremism and left-wing terrorism, for sure, and it is about time that it was taken seriously. I think. I don't know about, like I said, I'm not sure about Antifa being terrorist, strictly speaking. I mean, maybe it's a borderline case, but then what are they called? Proud Boys. They were designated terrorists, weren't they? Proud Boys, like. To call them terrorists is a bit mad as well. So I feels like we've gone a bit too far in general when it comes to defining groups as terrorists.
The Liberals finally banned that Northern Irish rap group from entering Canada. So they've been banned in many countries for their stuff there. And it says finally the Vince Gasparo, the Parliamentary Secretary for Combating Crime, says our government will not tolerate the advocating of political violence, terrorism, anti-Semitism, and hate more broadly.
And they've sued. I don't know if we can have that next slide, but they've sued already. They said they're going to sue. They said they're going to sue the federal government and give, what do they say? When we beat you in court, which we will donate every cent to the thousands of child amputees in Gaza. That's what they sound like, by the way.
There you go. We did talk about Jimmy Kimmel and how they spend so much time. The Canadian media has spent so much time on Jimmy Kimmel. But here's CNN, Geraldo Rivera, trying to make sense of it. There is some sane people that work at CNN as well. Let's listen in.
Jimmy Kimmel owes the family of Charlie Kirk and his wife Erica, 2 small children, an apology. What's he saying? That if you're a member of MAGA and Charlie is a friend of MAGA, then he had it coming. It just it's in some way it's very extremely insensitive. The country's in a very tough spot right now. Everyone's walking on eggshells. The First Amendment is not a license to incite hatred. And, I think that we can start the discussion. Once Jimmy Kimmel apologizes, then they can talk about the business aspects and whether or not he gets back on the schedule and so forth. But there's got to be a recognition that a terrible thing has happened here and that millions of Americans are grievously hurt by what happened. There is Charlie Kirk was beloved by many. And to just tremble over it, he's not even buried yet, for goodness sake. And to make fun of the flags and half staff and so forth, I just think that we've got to look at it with a notion that the country has to be healed, that we have to work to bring people together, that we need to respect each other. We don't have to agree, but we have to respect. And I think that, the audience has deserted him for a good reason.
Don't say that on the other CNN show with Abby Phillips and the gang, because you'll just get pounced on. And there's a Wolf Blitzer. I didn't see Wolf around for a while. Wolf Blitzer getting a little
he's
old,
kind of a bit old-fashioned, isn't he, these days? He doesn't quite do it the way that they like it done on CNN, but you seem to be in agreement there with Geraldo's very, sensible statements.
Here's a Toronto Star trying to embarrass itself. Charlie Kirk's death is used as an excuse for MAGA to grab power. They already have power. What power are they grabbing? Toronto Star. They control the House, the Senate, the presidency. Which power are they trying to grab? Like what? I think what you're doing, I think that the left, what they're doing is convincing a lot of people that get sick to the stomach watching this to leave the left. Because, I've seen lots of people say, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Arnold Schwarzenegger has come out and said some stuff too. It's just ridiculous how anybody at any point in time would celebrate somebody's death, especially a father of 2 children.
Well, and also really, as we've said many times, a very peaceable character. It's not like he was out there with an axe trying to chop people up or something like that. He only ever said things.
Here's the irony, though. The same people screaming that Jimmy Kimmel deserves freedom of speech don't defend Charlie Kirk's right to freedom of speech.
It's completely irrational. And this is because, all this noise that you hear about America being in a kind of pre-Civil War state or whatever, that's not completely false. Because if you read about the 1850s in the US or other countries that have been on the verge of a civil war, it's very similar, where it's just completely irrational. It doesn't make any sense, and you have at least two groups who are just talking past each other. They're not trying to speak to each other.
I want to really put this to you though. If you look at what Charlie Kirk was doing, he actually went to universities and dialogued. He actually let you talk back at him, and then he would dialogue. That was his whole thing, right? He would actually dialogue. Does Jimmy Kimmel allow people to dialogue with him? No, he talks at you. Jimmy Kimmel talks at you because he's the smartest guy in the room, right? And he's a political pundit. He's supposed to be a comedian, right? He's out there. If you go look at his shows, it's a political platform, really. It's not a comedy show.
It's very I never really wasted much of my life watching it, but that one was a very lowbrow one, wasn't it? That was for the kind of, that was for the even, they're very low information viewers. And then Jon Stewart is for the ones that think that they're a bit smarter.
Throwing red meat to rabid dogs. And basically,
but it was just low grade. That's what Trump was right to say that. It's obviously trash. But then again, So is a lot of TV in America, you know, like that's just one of many trash TV shows.
I never watched Kimmel. I've seen some of his clips on X. I mean, I don't even have cable. I mean, the best thing you could do is shut them out. Shut them all out. Shut out CBC, shut out CTV, shut them out. Because,
Colbert, whatever his name is, he used to be interesting, didn't he? Around about 2005. But he gave up on that. And he's just another, like, Democratic Party press officer. But Jon Stewart is a cut above. He's clearly the most intelligent of all of them. And the most knowledgeable and well-read, but even he, I think, shames himself, and he did that in his show yesterday. I've seen clips of that where he's trying to imply that this is some kind of it's like the equivalent of North Korea or something in American eyes, which is just absurd. But
ask yourself this: ask yourself this: if they're not political platforms, why did our own elected officials, Carney, Freeland, go south and go on these programs with Jon Stewart and Colbert? Why? Odd, no?
They knew they would get a friendly hearing.
Yeah. Well, because it's political platforms. They didn't go on there because they're the best comedians, right? They didn't invite them on as comedic guests, right? Do you know what I mean? Just like, and here's the latest comedian from the whatever comedy show, Comedy Hour. No, they're political platforms, and that's what this graph that the Canadian government has. There's another story, I didn't put it in. It was out of Blacklock's today. I think $1.5 billion goes to the universities for left-leaning programs. Doesn't go to like center right or anything. It's just, here you go.
You mean courses, like degrees?
No, like research projects and different things.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So there's somebody on X that highlights these. I can't remember who it is, but they are hilarious, some of them. They're very much like that rice, gender just rice. It's stuff like that.
This is a poll, you put it on an Angus Reid poll there, that Canadians favor canola. And I think that's why Scott Moe is kind of like quiet right now. He wants something done for canola, and he doesn't care what needs to get done. He wants his canola deal. And canola's a tough market to get, you know what I mean? Like, especially in Canada, nobody wants to eat seed oils. And, somebody wants to buy it, and he wants to sell it. So Donald Trump
suggests that Canadians are more favorable to canola. They would rather protect canola than the auto industry, which has got a lot of people scratching their heads because they're kind of saying, they're pointing out that the auto industry is value added. That's like, supposed to be what we strive for in this country, but I don't know.
And here's the Globe and Mail looking to embarrass itself as well. Donald Trump promises to restore free speech. How's that working out? My question
I honestly don't think people understand what that means, do they? I mean, where should we start? Should we start with like philosophy 101? Do we have to go that far back to try and educate these people? They don't know what freedom of speech means, and they show it again and again and again.
So I put this clip on LinkedIn, and I said, where's the freedom of speech in Canada? Bill C-18 has crushed local independent media. There's no freedom of the press here. There's not even freedom of the press here. We have the government, the CBC, like, lapping at the liberal trough, and then the rest like feeding off the crumbs, and the rest getting like crushed by the liberal government that does not support freedom of the press. That much is pretty much evident. And then here's this next one here. This is my interview. Like, you got to go watch this. These are the people that are that small group of people that have been influencing Canadian politics for what? Last 10 years? The Green Party here in British Columbia.
I would say that demographic, at least for the last sort of 30, 40 years. But yeah, in terms of the green agenda, yeah.
And then I always like to fill things up with, no, I won't even put this up. But anyway, that's our show for the week. That's it. Free the media. Help us fight Bill C-18, because you know that the Liberals will never do it because they have control of the media in Canada. They absolutely have control of the media. Have them begging for money, and the CBC love it because they're getting more money. You know what I mean? Again, when they got that $150 million raise, I mean, I say this, so I sound like Trump sometimes. I say the same thing over and over and over again. When they got their $150 million raise, what did they do?
You got to do that.
What did they do? They gave themselves a big fat raise. The executives, just the executives took a raise.
Oh no, they crashed.
No, you're still there. Anyway. CBC, loving it. Can you hear me still? No, he might not hear us. So anyway, we'll end our show for the week. We're back next Monday, hopefully. And help fight the message, right? And help free the media too in Canada. Help us share this out there, get it out there. Until Monday, have a great weekend.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.